Hi guys, it's Aiden from GamePer here. In this video I'm going to talk about the Xbox Series S, which Microsoft has just confirmed and priced in the same breath, which feels like a breath of fresh air for this upcoming console generation. So the Xbox Series X, according to Microsoft, is 60% smaller than the X Series X. It's all digital, so there's no disk drive involved. It can do 1440p up to 120 FPS, DirectX ray tracing, so software solution ray tracing, variable rate shading, variable refresh rate, ultra low latency, a custom 512GB SSD, 4K streaming media playback, which is actually surprisingly important in this day and age, and 4K upscaling for games. Now, when it comes to an actual deep dive on what the damn box has in it, we've got nothing but leaks. So these are more pinch of salt, and we'll be comparing the Xbox Series X to the Xbox Series S. So the X, 12.15 teraflops of GPU power, which I will repeat again for all involved, means absolutely jack diddly nothing. By comparison, so we're assuming at least on the same scale, the Xbox Series X has 4 teraflops. They're both running 7nm enhanced chips, which is nice. It looks like, identical CPUs between the two, an 8-core 16-thread Zen 2 CPU at 3.8 gigahertz. The GPU differential is probably going to be pretty strong because they're loath on this sheet to talk about it. The RAM situation is 16 gig of RAM in the Xbox Series X, while we have 10 gigabytes of RAM in the Series S. Both of them are GDDR6, and it looks, because the Series X is basically split into 2 blocks of RAM, there's a 10 gig and a 6 gig block. It looks like the Series S will just have the 10 gig block running at 560 gigabytes per second. So they're really the standouts. Yeah, it's still a PCIe 4.0 SSD, and yeah, that's enough. So we have basically the Xbox Series S confirmed for $299 dues, which is really good. I'm actually very impressed by this little device, and we're going to talk about why it's such a good idea for Microsoft to actually do this. Namely, it's always a mistake to completely eradicate low budget consumers from your ecosystem. It seems and sounds like a really nice idea at the time, right? Where you milk the shit out of people who have a lot of money, and you build your products all around them and you charge them a lot of money and all the rest of it. But that doesn't entirely work in gaming. People who can't afford to upgrade simply don't upgrade, and they're not with you in the next cycle of your earnings to the degree that you wish they were. So Microsoft doing the Xbox Series S allows budget-minded gamers to buy in. So let me put it this way, right? You could get your Game Pass and you could get your Xbox Series S for what, $305? And there you are, your next gen gaming. You've got Game Pass, so whatever games come out on Game Pass you're going to be able to play, which is all Microsoft first party games, and then whatever third party games they manage to swing. And boom, you're in it, you're in the next gen. You don't need to upgrade to a 4K monitor or 4K television if you don't have one. If that's not something that you can afford to do, you are absolutely golden. And it's just a really smart move from Microsoft. Now, the only kind of people can disagree with me if they want here, but the only kind of underhand thing that Microsoft really did in all of this is focus heavily on the power and performance of the Xbox Series X, whilst never talking about price, and then focusing on the price whilst not officially talking about power of the Xbox Series S. So I kind of understand why. Like, there's going to be a huge differential. There's no point in looking at the Xbox Series S and saying, wow, it can do 4K too. I mean, I don't think people appreciate how ugly 4K can look if it's not done the right way. If you're doing 4K without the relevant textures, without the relevant quality settings, like basically low settings 4K isn't hugely visually impressive when compared to high settings 1440p, which is the actual strength of the Xbox Series S right here. Running games at 1440p, I firmly believe 1440p is God's own goddamn resolution. That is how whatever your personal Lord and Savior is more than likely meant you to experience games over the next couple of years. It's only not happening in a larger sense because TV manufacturing kind of skipped 1440p as a valid and viable resolution and just went straight from 1080 to 4K for the most part. And consoles are reliant on the TV market and what the TV market is doing and the kind of tech that the TV market is pushing. It's always been that way. It's a symbiotic relationship in that sense. But for me, the Xbox Series X Series S, is right on the money with a focus on 1440p, because I think personally 1440p looks good. I think 1440p allows for like really nice graphics at good settings, so you're not like cutting stuff down to mediums and lows just to get it to run at 4K, etc. You are seeing a very nice resolution to play at, you are playing at very nice frames, and it would have been the absolute sweet spot for me personally for the next generation in general. Now, as it happens, people who want it can have it, which is great, because for a while it looked like you were basically goosed if you wanted to do that. But now you can do it, and you don't even need to buy a more powerful console to not take advantage of that power and play at the resolutions and stuff that you want to play these new games at. It really is a very good move from Microsoft, and I'm assuming Sony knew this was coming, and I'm not sure what kind of a curveball it throws at them. I'm not sure if they're going to have a similarly priced budget option, as in the discless PS5. I don't imagine they'll be able to compete with this, because the only difference between those two PS5 models that we've seen, as far as we're aware, is that one has a disc and one doesn't, and the price differential is not going to be that much unless the PS5 is priced extremely low. And if that's the case, Microsoft have much bigger issues to worry about. What does this mean for the price of the Xbox Series X? I couldn't tell you, and anybody who says they can is more than likely a liar. I would still expect it to be quite expensive. I would expect the visual differences between the X and the S to be overt and obvious when you are running your games, because the Xbox Series X is just going to be so much more powerful than the S. And that power will have nothing got to do with whether it's doing like upscale 4K or not. That power has everything got to do with things like lighting, geometry, draw distances, textures, anything else you can think of that actually involves or is actually involved in how a game looks. So yeah, still fun times though. I mean, super fun times if you're a budget gamer and you were really worried about having to throw out maybe $550 or even $600 on the upcoming consoles. This just saved your bacon, really, didn't it? I mean, I'm in a very like privileged spot right now. I can game on whatever I want at whatever frames I want and resolutions I want and all the rest of it. But I remember being young and I remember not being able to do that. And it's just really fun to see not just this glitch in Warframe, which cracked me up when it happened, but the Xbox Series X and this focus and inclusion of budget gamers, because budget gamers are just as important as everybody else to the gaming ecosystem, and it's good to see Microsoft not forgetting that. So yeah, that's it. What do you think about the Xbox Series S? What do you think? Like, will you buy this over the X if you weren't kind of planning on being able to budget to get like a new 4K screen or TV if you didn't have one? I think it's a very good solution that Microsoft have offered people here, especially in conjunction with Game Pass, which is probably the best subscription service in gaming at the moment. So strong moves from Microsoft, despite them downplaying their obvious desire to succeed in the console hardware space over the course of this generation. So thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you're having a good day and all the best.